study of the depth of the interview. Please find out if it is not clear at that time. Please call back, get clear information about maybe the appointment, if it's an interview, the time is important, the date, the day, and everything. Don't just get a phone call and it's not clear, then you leave it at that. Take an initiative, to get all the information that is required. So in this way, from these stages, we look at the key skills. We call them the soft skills. What are they? These are personal attributes that enable someone to interact effectively and harmoniously with other people. So of course, in any environment, it can be at the workplace, it can be in the community, anywhere. There are those adverts, and maybe they said, yeah, right from after knowing that they're done with the interviews and even at the time when you're test. So your mindset is very, very, very important. You need to work towards it. Of course, whatever you believe in is what you get. Okay? So of course, even when you go for an interview, there are cases you have to know that there are two scenarios. You expect most of all 99% to go through. But then you leave the 1% that what if I'm not taken on? Definitely you have to have it that there will be another opportunity, and then you continue. Apply not to give up. Okay? Effective communication. You should work on your effective communication. Communication is important. Like I said, physically, how you speak, even non-verbal communication, how do you present yourself when you're talking to the panel, right? But you write when you have no knowledge. You have to do research. Then presentation, how do you appear as the interview panel? You need to differentiate between the different environments. The way you present yourself when you're going for an interview is not the same way you present yourself when you're going for a wedding. So we need to differentiate all those aspects. You have to be smart. Which colors you wear, when you're going for an interview. Very shouting colors are not so attractive. You have to be a little dull. Black, navy blue, some brown, like, and for ladies, we have the hair, how is your hairstyle, the nails, how are they, the lipstick, is it, this, that. So you need to work on all those things. All that is presentation. What kind of shoe? Is it the one that we hear right from basement that so-and-so is coming? Making too much. Are you putting on open shoes? No. Closed, decent. Be presentable. After all, it is a one-off. It's a short time. If it means removing your hair and you plaited it yesterday, and you need to appear smart, please do it. So, organization skills. How do you appear? You reach the banner and books are falling, your papers are all over the place, your shoes are falling out. So, organization, it should be all through what you have, what you put on, what you're carrying until the time. Questions. Are you responding to a question after they ask the second question, or you're now asking the panelists? So you handle one thing at a time. I mentioned about research. Do research. You've been in school all the way, right from nursery school to whatever level we are. Never go for an interview without researching about the organization, where it is located. For instance, if tomorrow we call you back for an interview in the ministry here, I guess from the time you leave here, right from the very first session, that is presented about the ministry, I believe some of the things will be wrong. What he has presented, what is the ministry all about? That's what he was giving me. How is the administrative structure? Which departments? Even if I'm asked, how many departments are there? You can give me a number, 1 or 2, or more than 3. You see? Even if you cannot tell the exact departments, but at least be closer to the answer. say something, don't just keep quiet. No? Even when you don't know, try to let the panel get to understand. Maybe you know, but something has gone on, but talk to them because they are there. They need someone to talk to. If you're not sure, you can admit. But if I'm given an opportunity, I'll simply get to know that I have the interest, however, for now. Maybe it has been mind or something, but I have the ability to learn. You get, don't just leave the panelists, just stand it. So, at the pre-interview, you need to do a lot of research and look at the key skills that are required. Of course, that's not all. There are a number of things. So, first, I'm just giving you a hint, one or two things that you can take home. You can proceed. So then, what are the key skills that you need at the interview? Of course, then, before you go to the interview, you have to have first established and work on the skills that you really need before. So then, at the interview, of course, your mindset should be clear. Now you're looking at yourself. Now I'm here at the interview. What is it that I must have? Self-confidence. No? You have to reduce the fear of rejection. However small you are, however, whatever you may look yourself as, like me, I've been on the street for over, I don't know how many years. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. By the mere fact that you are given, and take on the I can perspective, I can make it. Positive attitude is very important. Effective communication. How do you communicate when you ask a question? Even the non-verbal, they say when they ask you for a question, or they ask something, and you're seated, but how do you sit? Are you crisscrossing? Are you, restless? Are you touching your hair? So all those non-verbal, that is also communication. So you need to show that you're attentive, listening, and composed, So you don't have to make lots of movements. Non-verbally. Positive attitude, I've mentioned about that. Know that you're going to make it. Of course, if you clear your attitude and mindset, yes, definitely everything will work out. Time management. An interview is at 8. You come at 10. You find a panelist gone. So you're going to interview yourself. You can give you a scenario of two people. They're looking for, they were interviewing some people, and I think 2 people managed to have the same marks, and everything, they're all good in some organization. So then the panelists were puzzled, what do we do? So then they were told, come back tomorrow at 8. Of course, the person who arrived first arrived at 7:15. The other person arrived at 7:40. But they all came early. But guess who took the position? Someone who arrived at 7:15. Because they had nothing to do. So time management is very important. Even when you're told you start at 8 and you begin at 2, be patient. You give it time. It's a 1 day. So until when maybe you're told the interview will no longer take place, but that will be unfortunate. But as long as it's communicated to you, the time, please do that. Presentation skills. That's what you say. How you present yourself, how you bring out the issues at the interview. There are certain key questions they may ask. What made you apply for this job? Why do you think we can take you on? What makes you the best candidate for this job? Then how are you going to present yourself? How are you going to state those issues? Look at the subject matter. What is the job all about? Is it labor related? Is it legal related? Is it accountancy? Is it... So you talk things in relation to them, in line with the job that you have been applied, you have been shortlisted for. Or there are some job opportunities that are open. Just have to remember, okay, you understand your qualifications. can also ask, you have to find out exactly, maybe about the organization. If it's general, give some information about the organization, say something. If it's gender, you don't know about gender-related issues. Was it open, it wasn't specific that they need maybe child protection, someone. It is general, not something about gender. Here, women and children affairs, maybe, just say I can support communities in this. I can write reports. I'm a team player. There are those things that can help you get closer. So, you also need to do research. Interpersonal skills, how do you relate with others? Are you a team player? So you can work alone. So you need to show that you can work with others. You need to consult. You're able to consult, even assignments. Active listening is very important. Of course, with listening, then it will help you achieve the expected results. Right from your supervisor, from the people you relate with. At the interview, basically, you have to really listen attentively. If it's not clear, these are also human beings, okay? I say, I beg your pardon. I say, think. You may have forgotten something, but then you just say, I beg your pardon. Or you say something, Don't just answer something wrongly simply because you need to get it clearly. Okay? When you say that's not clear, may you please maybe say again for something. Okay? Interpersonal skills. Those are your inner skills that you have to work on. Your self-esteem. You should have a high self-esteem. Don't always think that someone will feel empathy for you. No, there is no time for that. The world is moving on. People need things to move, So I say, I'm not answer, maybe they'll see my hair and say, okay, you take on the job. No. There are people that come and are really serious. They will say things there and then spot on. So you're competing with those ones. Also, you try to run at the same pace with them. Self-confidence. How do you say? How do you know? Are you audible? Are you self-motivation? Manage your emotions. If you're very short-tempered, of course, panelists, we are. Some of us have been excellent panelists, but we are also different. I may say something that will annoy you. But how do you handle at that time? You're like, you have to pull up yourself and you're like, no, I have to accomplish this race. It is a race. You can proceed. Then, post-interview assessment. Now, assuming you've been successful at the interview, given all the skills that you've taken you through. So, what is it that you should work on or you should know? You have to, assuming now you called and you've been successful, you take on a given job offer. Of course, there are basic things you need to know. Once you're given a job offer, basically, you have to write an acceptance letter. Okay? As soon as you're called, an acceptance letter is very important, and you have verified with the organization that it's true. It's your name, it's that organization that has called you and given you a job offer. Now, definitely, they may think that you're not interested, and the second person is taken on. So by the time you remember to go back, the job offer is not there. They've given to someone else, so you need to be very fast and swift. Some things, positive attitude, strong work ethics. Of course, if you're going to work, you need to understand the organizational objectives. Understand your roles, your work schedule, There's some organizations where they will not give you all those things. But be vigilant. Look for your supervisor, ask them what am I supposed to do, can I help with this? Some of the things you create yourself. Okay? Then excellent communication interpersonal, those are the same things, problem solving skills. person in the job, there is an issue. Are you going to report to the, say the head of this is a minister? Are you going to report to the cabinet minister at that point, and then you deployed and given department? No, you need to understand the organizational structure. How do you handle certain issues? Consult and find out. Time management. Every organization has a time when they start and end work. Please abide. Flexibility. If you are a social scientist, maybe, and they've given you some research and statistics work, fill in some data, use Excel or other whatever softwares. Then you're rigid, you're like, no, me I did social sciences, I don't deal with numbers. So we need to be flexible. If you don't understand something, there are other people that know it. So use them so that you learn also from them. Team management. We have to work as a team. No one is an island. So in organizations you find and meet different people, different challenges. It's not going to be smooth all the time. But how do you manage? Are you someone who's going to be reporting everyone every day, and that is your role to report? No, you have a target why you came to that organization. Computer and technological skills. You need to learn how to use IT. If you know only maybe words, or even if the typing is you're slow, you can practice and work at it. There is Mr. Google. Mr. Google can help us in some of those things. Explore. Teach yourself certain things. YouTube is there. Computer project management skills. It depends on where you're placed. Other organizations need people that are innovative. Are you good at project development? If you're not, is there someone who is good at that? Can you learn from them one or two things? How to write a report, what is the format? Some organizations have no format. So you as a person who has joined the organization, what difference are you making? And that is some of the questions they will ask. What is it that you're bringing to our organization? Which skill? Pick one or two things. If you found something, certain things are done in certain ways, what is it that you can change maybe to make your work easy? If you go to the field and not make reports, can you generate a report template that you can use and other members use so that it is your initiative? Those are innovation skills. It's also related. Ability to accept constructive criticism. Of course, not everyone is going to say you're good. You're not an angel. That one you expect it. But for you, like I said, self-esteem is very important. If you know you have a very high self-esteem, you have a positive attitude, you know why you're there, you understand the organization, work ethics, all that is expected. So even if someone tells you something negative, okay, you need to look at it. At times they may be true, They may tell you the right thing. Time management, you're always coming in late. But it's the fact. You're going to still all the time say, but this person, he creates grudges over and over. But it's the fact. Settle, look at that issue and try to work on it. If you already submit your reports late, ask others, how do you manage? How do you do it? If you want to be our colleague, your colleagues are leaving at 5. Why you want to leave at 8? Why? You want to show that you're a superstar in the organization. Please find a way to work within the timeline. Unless otherwise, if it is really necessary. But with an explanation, because also that has some implications. Assuming you stayed late in office and by the time you left office, someone breaks in office, definitely they will say you're the first suspect. Then of course, do not also show that you're working too much and you carry your work home. There are other roles and responsibilities, so we need to plan and budget within our time, be efficient, effective, and all that. So that is at the when you place and you're in an organization, there are many other things Are you taking on what we told you? Is there a challenge that you're facing that you need some guidance? Is the employer not giving you an operator? Are you on probation from 1 year until 20 years, still on probation? What does it become? So look at all those provisions. Termination, But again, you shouldn't take it that you have to understand it by roles and responsibilities. Also, the employer should know their roles and responsibilities. Some of those things are in the Employment Act. Read it, refer to it, you can Google about that. Employment Policy and Employment Act. Those are the things that govern employment in the country. So basically, I think that's what we have to say, but of course at this point we ensure that once you're placed, you are successful on the job, you are productive, and you are sustained at the job. So you have to make sure that if it's a 1-year contract, you have to complete that 1-year contract. But in good terms, in good faith, with innovations, having learned new skills, then at the end of the contract, so that what have you executed within that period? Do you really qualify for a renewable contract? Or you're going to be expelled in the first 1 month? Are you productive? Some organizations don't tell you, you write this, you write this. You have to really come out of the box and now, like a baby, starting to struggle, how do I get this, how do I get that? So I need to be proactive. And of course, I also encourage people to develop their careers. The first job is a one step taking you to another. Seek out for, if it's like for government, from officer level is 3 years to move to another rank, senior. Another 3 years, principal, aim higher. Don't be in the vertical slope of employment. Move higher, horizontally. Career development, career growth. Acquire more skills if you have a bachelor's or degree under the ministry. What we normally do is we conduct monitoring and follow-up of our candidates because we take you as our own. I think you have to see how you are working in that organization. Are you taking on what we told you? Is there a challenge that you're facing that you need some guidance? Is the employer? Are you on probation from 1 year? How many of you have had some experience in the workplace? Have worked somewhere before? Even if it's voluntary. Something. Yeah. How many have done it? Those that have not put up their hands away. You fear, self-confidence. You're employing yourself. Yeah. If you're employing yourself, it's also something good. So you need to see how best to move from one level to increase your production. From this to this, how do I market my products? Other things will be told. Otherwise, thank you for listening to me. You can have.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Ufu Nagai Uchu, Labor Support Officer here in the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. So I'm taking you through that, something about youth unemployment during post-COVID-19 era. So I want all of us to think, how do we go about the issue of unemployment in this current situation, post-COVID? Those of you who wish to share a few ideas with me, please, you can give us your views. What do you think we can do to go about unemployment post-COVID-19?
Who are really suffering from unemployment, starting from those who are studying and those who graduated. And there have been also some companies that have really reduced on the number of the workers during this COVID, because some organizations could not sustain their resources. But what should we do about this? I think what we should really do about is by enhancing these people who have really created their own jobs, like entrepreneurs, people in the market, people who have really created their own jobs. Yeah, we should give them enough capital, like people, workers who are really there in remote places, who are practicing farming. They really need some capital, because these are the people who really feed us. They have really done a great job in this COVID-19, whereby even food was real abundant to feed us. But also, they need something to enhance them so that they keep on who are here in town, on the streets, who are not doing anything. That they should at least join or cultivate that what? Uncultivated land in their what? In their areas. Some of them, they just come here to look for jobs, but the situation is not really the same. Now, people who have the jobs are the real farmers back in the communities. So we should at least empower these people, provide them enough capital, and plus these people who are not really at school, they should be also getting hands with their parents in the villages to practice is really at the high what? At a higher place, but these white collar jobs are really now scarce. The only place we have to see is like
skilling the youth on mobile, like online marketing. For someone to have a business, but people who don't know about it. People have some nice entrepreneurship thing they have started up. With like businesses, some small businesses like jewelry, like making charcoal, out of banana peeling. People have started up some small things which can be uplifted through marketing if people can know about them, but they don't know how they can put them out there.
I don't know if it can be like an advice in terms of government. Because the problem we have been having, we have all gone to school looking at this white collar. We both finish school, find another job, I will get a job, maybe become someone, build a house, marry and do that. Unfortunately, now we have a lot of us who have gone to school. We are out there having our books, but we don't know what to do. Usually I used to blame the curriculum, the syllabus they used to teach us, just theoretical, it wasn't practical. But unfortunately we found that people who went to institutions that are practical happen to make it in the workforce. You find you at Makerere overlooking a guy at YMCA. You think he's nobody, but he's studying hotel management or catering or something. After school, these are the people who are employed. They might not be getting the practical aspect in school. They should learn more practically.
How am I going to go about unemployment post-COVID? Let us leave the government aside. Look at yourself as an individual. Somehow, while we were introducing ourselves, someone said she's an entrepreneur. Exactly. So we are looking at such things. She thought out of the box and she started something for herself. So that is how I'm looking at this issue of unemployment. Look at it as you as an individual. How can you go about it? How can you help yourself out to go past that? Is it something? Now, Elizabeth,
about that, the problem we have as people who went to school, like we have our degrees, we have your diplomas, feel like you can't do such a job, I can't do this job, I can't do this job. So we have that mentality as we go into school. Yet there are those people who maybe drop out, P7 drop out, but
she had nothing, like, she did go to school, but she started a small business, like selling chocolate, tomatoes, and she's getting more than you. True. You're not earning anything, and you're like, I can't do such kind of job because I went to school. How could people see me? But what I think is, we should change our mentality. How we think, how we go about things. Like now in the COVID era, people are being retrenched from that, like, what am I going to do right now? Let me start a small business, whether selling chocolate, whether tomatoes, whether, as long as it is something that you can make money from, that would be it. So we should check our mentality as people not going to be rescued, but we should know how am I going to go about this, am I going to get this happening in my products. Yes. Thank you so much.
You talked with kind of a policy or idea of thinking about that now. In relation to, actually, if I may use me as an example, yes, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a sole proprietor, but still, that affects me, what you are talking about, the directly affects what I'm doing. I need the government to interfere, government like when it comes to capital, which is the main issue when we start with that. We despise the capital, and there are some people, motivational speakers that keep saying, I started this business with capital, but when you actually look back, that is not, it's not that good, it's allowed. Most people, when they start, they have a backup of maybe they came from a rich family, or you were working somewhere, but they just disclose that small, big, where they say. So, capital is the main ingredient, and if the government doesn't have our backup, like, it's so hard. Right now, how will I come up with the capital to start what I'm doing? Even if I started with 30,000, I need to invest in that business so it can go to build me to somewhere so that I be successful in life. Otherwise, I'll keep on the street now. I'm just working on the work, which means my leveraging is a day, and yet the standard of living is increasing every year. So I actually want to do it. I won't be able to support myself. So as I say, the government needs to step in and help us with that. Then also the taxation thing. To be able to get a sensible job or a sensible contract with a reasonable company, most of them require you to be investors. You need actually, it's not easy. It's not easy dealing with that when it comes to the URL. It's really, really just, if you're just starting and you're aiming high, you will go and register, then the taxes will start. URL will be on notice all that time. I think you're not earning enough to support your service. So that has to be considered.
Thank you very much. Anyway, allow me to take through just briefly a few things I prepared for you. Just what you can pick from here and we'll go ahead and listen. Most of us here have smartphones, don't we? So how have we used the social media to go about unemployment? We as the youth. This is something very important and something very easy, something at our desk. How are we using it to go about that issue of unemployment? Basically, I'm just trying to give you a few schemes as you individuals, what you can do to help yourself. Somewhere you can use social media to expand your networks and influence. There are lots of platforms. People have Instagram pages and they have done lots of their things and they have displayed them. You know, how are you using the social media to expand yourself? Share photos, share videos. Ask the people who view you and view your posts. You shall be interested eventually. You won't have to go and again pay for advertisements elsewhere. Yet you can do it yourself. You can go on and build your brand and expand it. On Instagram, I've seen lots of influential entrepreneurs, young people. Someone comes up and all they do is to braid hair. You get those braids, they weave them and make it a wig. They post on social media and they have built brands. Not something that they go ahead and solicit money here and there. No. It's something you can do yourself. How do you use your social media to do the job hunting? Today, there are still lots of platforms that are posting jobs. NGOs are posting jobs. Go to websites like the Uganda Jobline, go to Writer Monday, all that. Also, you can use the social media to join the discussion forums. Lately, people do a lot of Zoom meetings here and there, and they are all developmental. They've been talking about important issues. And you know, sometimes you don't even have to pay anything to join. You can always go ahead and participate. You should look at that. We are going to have a working breakfast or something, so keep thinking what it is. So how else can we go about unemployment? Of course, you need the technical skills, how to use the internet, because nowadays it's the era we're in. If you want to be a productive, well-known entrepreneur, nowadays you have to know how to use the social media. Personal skills, the soft skills, how do you communicate to people? Are you a team leader? Can you handle groups of people you're going to employ just in case your business grows? Management skills, how do you handle the people who are working for you? You can't network. Delegation, you know, some of us like to own businesses. We are the ones to market, we are the ones to deliver, we are the ones to, you know, do everything solely. Or not so small, but small. You can find ways of saving and starting something with at least you have. Something that fits your finances, your budget, your capital. That's how businesses come up. You can't always be sure it's going to receive huge sums of money to take on. Then the leadership skills. You know, as an entrepreneur, you also have to have a little knowledge of leadership. How are you going to take on your project? So the other way we can go about unemployment as the youth, we can check up places of volunteerism, apprenticeship, and internship. Personally, me in front of you to get the job I'm doing, I have been a volunteer. So it is something I would really encourage all of you. You know, you go to an institution, an organization, apply as a volunteer, check it out. What do you need to check on volunteerism? Are you committed? You have to be committed as a volunteer. How do you communicate? Compassion, leadership, strong work ethics. How do you relate to people? How is your work conduct? Are you a team player? Are you a good time manager? Eventually, your employers will retain you most of the time because they don't want to lose someone who's an asset. So endeavor to make a name of it. Be it internship, be it volunteerism, it does not matter. That's how people get into employment. And personally, that's how I got into Ministry of Gender and Emancipation. So I would really encourage you to check out that. Then, lastly, I would encourage you to participate in vocational training programs. There are plenty of them. Even we could start from low scale, you know. Where I come from, somewhere, there are groups of the youth that come up to teach themselves different skills. They learn how to do liquid soap, they learn how to do maybe those things like baking, things like sewing. You can always start up something that's the youth. You don't have to wait for anyone to push you. And if you have at all, just have one, rather be static, just stagnant there, you can't move. So always endeavor that you go ahead and learn. So the skills you need to take on the vocational training programs. Of course, work readiness, just in case you got a job, how ready are you? Well, you're doing this weaving of the hair, but how ready are you in case you got a job? Supposed to look at it. Interview and job search skills. Well, I am a mechanic or doing something in that field, but then you have to also look for the jobs. You have to look for the cars they're going to repair, you have to look for the machines they're going to fix. Social and communication skills. Of course, how do you network? Ask the people who know you, who can always recommend. We can be, and then we know, okay, like the ladies usually recommend to each other salons. Be like, oh no, I will go to Afros and oh, they have very nice hair skills. That's how things work. Learn to network, communicate, it's all those vocational skills you attain. And then you also have to have a career choice as a person. Well, if the formal field fails, you can always think of something you can do outside the formal sector rather than informal bit of it. If I'm currently a labor officer in Ministry of Gender and at all things fail, then personally I like things that live in animals and all that. So I'll think out of the box and save up and start maybe a poultry farm, start up something you really like besides your formal job. So with those few points, allow me to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Kuchu, for the wonderful presentation. Invite our next presenter to present to us issues on sexual exploitation and trafficking in persons, which is also a very, very important topic for our job seekers. So let me invite Madame Daisy to take us through. She's our legal consultant. She's very knowledgeable in this area. So please, Ms. Daisy, you can take us through. You're welcome.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner. May I beg to by introducing to you who I am. I've already told you who I am, but the reason I'm going to introduce myself again is I want you to know that I'm speaking from experience, a lot of experience in this area. I'm Daisy Navasitu. I'm a Hubert Humphrey Fellow of 2019-2020. Hubert Humphrey Fellow, and that's a U.S. fellowship. It is one of the most prestigious fellowships in the world. And it is sponsored by the Department of State, by the U.S. Department of State. And it is basically about training mid-career professionals in different areas. So depending on your area of interest, you write your project. So mine was basically on sexual exploitation of women and children, and that's how I ended up in the US. I've just returned. So I would invite you to always look out for such opportunities, just like Kuchu has been telling you. Look out for these opportunities as you look for the jobs to try and improve on your skills. So that is a very prestigious fellowship, and I'm here to share with you some of the information I've learned from there. But before then, all professionally, I'm a lawyer and I'm an assistant director of public prosecutions. And that is the office that deals with prosecution of crimes in Uganda. That is our sole mandate. I'm a legal consultant in different areas, and I'm a PhD candidate at the National University of Ireland in Galway. So I'm carrying out my research as I'm doing this presentation on the area of trafficking of domestic migrant workers. So why I'm telling you all this is that I'm speaking from experience, and with experience on this area that I'm going to tell you about. So my area is going to be about, let's go, sexual harassment. And sexual harassment during job search or while in employment is a very serious issue that you need to look out for as you look for jobs. Because most often, some of you are victims, either knowingly or unknowingly. As we move on, I want to ask a question. Has anyone of you ever been sexually harassed while you're looking for jobs? I want us to be open. Yes. Anyone else? We said we have to be confident as we look for the jobs. What about the men? You mean the men are not sexually harassed by the women? Should we take it that you've never been or faced this harassment, the sexual harassment?
Yes.
You have?
For suspicion of sexual harassment.
Okay. Sometimes you have, but you have not really actually conceptualized it or taken it to harassment. What do I mean? It means the verbal or physical abuse or behavior that unreasonably interferes with your work or creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment, including intimidation. So look at all those things, the ingredients. It can be intimidation, it can be behavior, it can be words, you know? So as you're looking for jobs out there, someone might tell you something that points to the fact that they are trying to sexually harass you. And sexual exploitation, harassment actually includes sexual exploitation and sexual abuse. I'm not going to talk about other abuses that you may experience, but this is one area that has not been tackled in our sector. So now, what is sexual abuse and what is sexual exploitation? So sexual exploitation, before I go on, is a gross violation of human rights. You as a person seeking for employment, you must know that once you are suffering or you're exposed to sexual abuse or sexual exploitation, your rights are being violated. I'm a human rights advocate, so for everything I speak about in my entire life, I'll always say that's a violation of my rights. That is, I'll always try to remind you that you should not trample on my rights. So every time you're looking for your jobs and you're trying to contact ABC through the social networks that Kuchu has just talked about, ensure that you're not falling prey to the sexual exploitation. So what is sexual exploitation and what is sexual abuse? Sexual exploitation includes many things. It can be actual or it can be attempted. And someone will just take advantage of the fact that you are vulnerable and looking for a job and will make sexual advances to you. For example, they may say, okay, if you need a job, find me in hotel X. I'll not mention people's hotels. And then you will go there. When you get there, they will say, okay, for you to get this job, you need to give me sexual intercourse. I'm a lawyer, so I'll say things the way we say them. I'm not embarrassed to say them. But because I know some of you are, I try to be a little polite. But for us, when we're in court, we shall say sexual intercourse is sexual intercourse. So they'll ask you for sexual intercourse. And because you're desperate, you'll accept and go in with this man, all the ladies. It is not only men actually who exploit, even the ladies, your bosses. Men, you're going to find ladies like me who will exploit you sexually. So they will make these advances and you'll accept for you to get this job. And it is just because you are vulnerable and the person who is exploiting you is in a position of responsibility. So you end up falling prey. Let's move on. So there are very many ingredients that you have to look out for to show or to realize that sexual exploitation is taking place. And this usually happens before or at your workplace. So someone can actually threaten you. For example, after getting your job very well, you're now employed by the Ministry of Gender, and your immediate boss says, if you do not give in to the sexual act, I will not promote you. So your promotion becomes conditional. That is all sexual exploitation. Other things include giving you monetary favors. Like for you to go for a trip abroad, you have to go with him and sleep with him or her for you to go for that trip. But it arises out of your work-related activities. So all those things, even other examples I cannot mention here, all amount to sexual exploitation. Now, sexual abuse is the actual, or it can be actual or threatened physical intrusion of your sexual nature. That means someone can have sexual intercourse with you, yeah? Or it can be forceful or consensual. You may accept, you may consent to it, but not because you want, but just because you want to either get the job or stay at the job. So all that amounts to sexual abuse because you're just giving in, you have allowed, but you do not actually. Your consent is conditioned on the fact that because I have nothing to do, then I have to sleep with my boss. Boss in quotes, because these are your supervisors, you know? So you end up giving in. So it can involve things like invading someone's sexual privacy, having sexual intercourse with you. They can involve forced transactional sex. Like, for example, if you want to get a job, there are these kayungirizi, the brokers. They will say, okay, you bring money, and then I connect you to X. You end up sleeping with X, and then you get the job. But you've also given money. Or that person gets money from the other person who is going to give you the job, and you end up getting that job. So those are the so-called forced transactional sex. Yeah? Then we may have non-consensual filming of sexual acts or exposures of genitals. I think you understand that. Online grooming or knowingly spreading a sexually transmitted disease or infection. While you're looking for jobs, you might end up sleeping with someone who ends up transmitting, for example, HIV or an STD to you, unintentionally and knowing. I mean, intentionally and knowingly. But just because you're desperate, you cannot even report. You understand? So all these are examples of sexual abuse while you are at your workplace or during your job search. So my dear friends, my dear brothers and sisters, be very careful as you're looking for these jobs. And make sure that every time you see a sign of sexual harassment, back off. In as much as you're desperate because your life is very important. You cannot continue to work when you have been infected by HIV. Of course, today corona is something that is highly infectious, but there are these diseases that you will live with and you've acquired them because you've been vulnerable. So because of the situation you are in, you are all vulnerable. Even me, I'm vulnerable. I'm not saying that someone cannot sexually harass me. You understand? So that's why I'm bringing it at this point, that as you look for your jobs, as you get placed in your jobs, this is something that is real, that is going to happen. And it happens from these low-income jobs, the people who sell food on the streets, to the high jobs that you know of, ministerial and presidential. Sexual harassment occurs at all levels. And most times the sexual exploitation is done by your family, or is facilitated by your family members, your friends, and your fellow employers. Your friend you sit with in office can be a man, and because he's interested in you, he will always make sexual advances. He will send you those WhatsApp messages, and then before you know it, he's asking for your goods. Or she is asking for your goods. When I talk about goods, you know what I mean. Yeah? And before you know it, you're falling prey because you know you want an offer from this lady to maybe give you this project. You understand? And it is very common in our workplace. Let's move on. So I spent a lot of time trying to explaining to you this so that you get to know exactly how you will fall prey. I've already talked about transactional sex, and that is the sex that is exchanged for employment. You understand? Because you need a favor from someone, you have to go and have sexual intercourse with them. There are also other forms of sexual transactional sex, but for this particular case that I'm talking about, you will just be doing it because you want to be employed. And it's a form of gender-based violence. And as I told you, men, you are also potential victims. So, job seekers, you are at a risk of this sexual harassment, and you are also at a risk of being trafficked. When I talk about human trafficking, do you know what human trafficking is? Do you? Has anyone been in a situation where they fear that they might be trafficked while they are looking for jobs? No? Yeah, so this is why I'm here. Most times and most often, you're going to be in situations that are going to lead you into trafficking situations. And when we talk about trafficking, people think it is only people who go abroad who are trafficked. You can be internally trafficked at your workplace. I'll speak about it briefly for you to understand what I'm talking about. So we are all at risk of being trafficked, and we are all at risk of being sexually abused. You understand? However, despite the fact that all these things live with us, we shall not discourage you from looking for jobs. You have to be out there and look for your jobs. You have to be out there and employ others. For the private employers like my sister here, you might be a potential sexual exploiter of a person you're going to employ. I'm not saying you. What I'm saying is that everyone is a potential sexual harasser and a potential victim of sexual harassment. You get what I mean? So you might be the victim or you might be the exploiter, depending on where you're sitting. However, despite the fact that we are experiencing all this, we have employment laws and policies in place, and we have laws and policies like the Penal Code Act, for which you have your remedies. You can report at police. How do you proceed with that in case you are a victim of human trafficking or in case you're a victim of sexual abuse during your job search or at your workplace? Let's move on. I'm done with the sexual bit of it, the sexual exploitation. Now I come to human trafficking during the job search. Now, you said some of you have not been in this situation, but I must confess that most of you have been or are going to be victims of human trafficking during your job search or at your workplace. And trafficking, briefly, is the process of enslaving people. I used simple terms for you to understand some of these phenomena. It is a process of enslaving people or coercing them into a situation that they cannot get out of them. Actually, the whole purpose is to make sure that someone exploits you. You understand? And for you to know that you're in a trafficking situation, you will have to look out for 3 ingredients. One of them is the recruitment process. How does a person tell you that for you to get this job, you need to do ABCD? The ministry, for example, has invited you here. This can be a kind of recruitment process if it was a trafficking process. For example, this would be the starting point. You see? Like people who go abroad, you hear companies that advertise and bring you together. Yes? So that is the starting point. Now, once the 3 ingredients are fulfilled, that's when human trafficking will be in place. So there must be a recruitment process. Someone will move you from one place to another. And the means they are going to use is another ingredient. They are going to coerce you. They are going to use fraud. They are going to use threats. You understand? Or they will use deceit. They'll lie to you that, okay, when you get this job, they are going to pay you 3 million shillings. And you're going to have allowances of about 500,000 in addition to that. So, but in actual sense, there is no such job offer. You understand? You hear adverts on radio, sometimes someone tells you, just call this number, and before you know it, they are telling you, bring ABCD, or they take you to a place and then they start lying to you. So all those are potential perpetrators of trafficking during the job search. Now I'm talking about internal trafficking because most of your minds are focusing on the external trafficking. Actually, most of you job seekers think that trafficking is for people who go abroad to Saudi Arabia, to Dubai and everything, and all those countries. But trafficking is here internally. Then the last one is that the person who is taking you on is taking you for the purpose of exploitation. And exploitation can be in terms of transactional sex that I told you about. It can be for forced labor. It can be forced begging, like those street children. It can be forced criminality. They can actually recruit you into a terrorist activity. They tell you, okay, let's go. We train you about how to overthrow the government. We shall be paying you. That is employment. You get me? They can take you into domestic servitude. Those girls who are being taken to the Middle East countries, it can be actually the most, of recent, one of the other forms of human trafficking that they are doing is to remove your organs and take them away. They lie to you that they are going to give you a job and sometimes take you abroad. Other times they want to. Of course, the organ removal can't be done here, but it starts here. Then they tell you have a job in South Africa, it's an accountancy job, and these guys target you, the professionals. Don't think that the human traffickers are targeting the uneducated, even you. And we should know that Uganda is a source, transit, and destination country. Source means they get people from here and take them to another country. Transit country means that people are gotten from Rwanda and brought here before their final destination. It's a destination country in that someone can be gotten from Kenya and brought here to Rwanda to be employed. This is a very wide topic, but I'm trying to summarize it. So make sure that as you look for your jobs, these things are in your mind. When someone calls you for a job employment, look out for all those elements I talked about. So now I'm going to go back to our other topic. Yeah, you now have a hint of what human trafficking is all about. Let's move on. So it's a global problem, and today, wherever you go, everyone is talking about human trafficking because it's very lucrative. People are making a lot of money out of enslaving you in your job search. Someone employs you as, for example, I'll use an example internally, but externally you must also be open to the fact that they'll tell you you're going to go and work in Qatar Airways or at the airport. And before you know it, when you get to Qatar, you're not even working at the airport. You're locked up in a building somewhere, and someone is telling you in the evening you'll have to go and strip, and you have to sell yourself. But it started as an employment contract here. You understand? So it's global, and everyone is aware. So when you are at the airport, they'll always ask you, where are you going? The reason they're asking you, what are you going to do, is because they know you might be a potential victim of trafficking, friend, or as a friend, or you've seen them actually on TV or social media. You see how they speak about their experiences. It's traumatizing, it is psychological. Like you suffer a lot of psychological torture and trauma. These effects also apply to sexual exploitation at your workplace. You cannot perform, you know? Every morning you're thinking about going to your job, you're worried about your boss who is going to harass you. You're even scared of going for your job. It is depressing. You suffer from anxiety and fear. Sometimes you even lose your memory. You feel guilty. Like, for example, assuming people know that you're sleeping with your boss. You know that every time you come to office and someone makes a comment, you might be thinking that maybe they know I'm sleeping with X because maybe they are older than you, or they are not healthy, or for whatever reason you start feeling guilty. So, how is the recruitment done for trafficking? People will always ask you to, they will ask to offer you help. They will pretend to be a friend or a potential romantic partner. For the girls, someone will offer you and say, you say I need to be your boyfriend, but I'm going to traffic you. For the men, you will be attracted to this woman, and men, you're going to be prey to the women because you think that they are romantic partners, and before you know it, they are leading you into trafficking situations. So we are all vulnerable to trafficking, and they will always take advantage of you. Let's move on. Examples of work-related sexual harassment now. I'm mixing these two together because somehow they have things in common: sexual attention. You have physical contact and touches. You go to office, then someone touches your part. That is sexual harassment. You have sexual comments about a person's clothing and body. You come into office and then your colleague says, oh, that dress is really, it's really like revealing. I mean, you haven't invited this comment, so that is sexual harassment. You don't know why they are asking, why aren't you married? Then someone says, oh, you look like someone's wife, or, you know, those funny jokes sometimes, and questions or stories are intended to subject you to sexual harassment. Then there are sexual materials that are not work-related. Someone keeps like posting, forwarding these WhatsApp messages to you. You have to ask yourself, why is my colleague always sending me these messages? You understand? We have other forms, like someone threatens you with demotion if you do not give in to sexual offers. For those of you who are, for example, looking for a job, someone invites you to their office, and then before you know it, they say, come at 6 o'clock. Or very early in the morning when people are not there, and the next thing we hear is that the person was raped. Men, you can also be raped. Do you know that? Yes. So don't think it is only women who are raped. Men, you will be raped by the women. And then there is use of offensive terms, pestering for dates and unwelcome sexual suggestions or invitations. So all those are examples of what? Sexual work-related harassment. Let's move on. However, as I spoke, that there are laws that address all these irregularities that happen. So make sure that you make use of these laws. Lillian mentioned about these laws and policies existing in these organizations where you're going to be seeking your employment. So make sure you are very conversant with the policies and laws governing these institutions where you're going in relation to all these other areas they've told you, but also in relation to addressing sexual abuse. I must state, Ministry of Gender, I know that most of these institutions you are partnering with do not have sexual harassment guidelines in place, yeah, or measures on how to fight against sexual harassment at the workplace. So can you please take it up and ensure that as you're placing these vulnerable people, there are also these sexual harassment measures in place where they can report. These are the national laws, some of the laws I have stated. The Penal Code Amendment Act has clauses on protecting women. I've talked about women because that's where you think, that's whom you think are more vulnerable, but men, you must also be on the lookout. We also have the Employment Act. It defines sexual harassment. You will look at it in Section 7, but we also now have the Employment Sexual Harassment Regulations of 2012. So look at them and see what they say. I will not take you through that because of time. Next. Now, assuming you have experienced some sexual harassment at your workplace, or you are in fear of a situation of trafficking in persons, and you feel that you really want to take up a step, what would you do? Find out whether there are complaints mechanisms. You can report to police as the first place of listings. For example, if during your job search, of course you cannot report at that place because you have not been placed there yet. The first place of instance is reporting at police. But before you report at police, make sure you have your evidence. It's not about just saying, he sent me this message and you misinterpreted it, yeah? So critically look at the institution's policy before all at signing the contract. That is now when you get your job, yeah? That is my recommendation, that institutions should establish a complaints mechanism in place. But as you report your sexual harassment cases, make sure you are confident. You're confident about what you're saying, and for the people to whom you're reporting, you must ensure that they have this confidentiality in them. You're not going to enter into someone's office and report to them how Minister X is harassing you, and as you move out, someone is saying, this girl just reported here that this minister is, you understand? There is no confidentiality. So confidentiality in reporting is very important, but even to the reporter, it is very important that you keep confidential. The information given to you, confidential. I've told you about reporting to police, but after reporting, adduce your evidence and follow up on your complaint. Report to NGOs. There are NGOs actually that are out there trying to help people. It doesn't necessarily mean that you must be a job seeker, but once you are in this situation, report to these NGOs and they will help you. But ensure that you have reliable, cogent evidence means reliable. Yeah? Avoid false and malicious complaints. Next. Because you will be embarrassed. You understand? So now the challenge is briefly, of course in the interest of time, the challenge is in fighting some of these crimes, the sexual exploitation, sexual abuse, and trafficking in persons. I've already listed them there. You can just look at them. We have failure to report or under-reporting. Sometimes you guys never report when you're faced with these challenges. We have monetization of offenses. Because you know that this boss has sometimes told you they love you and you accepted, you even moved out, slept, got some videos and everything. The next time you know, you're saying, he harassed me. Because you want to get money out of it, so you're making it as an offense. So that is a challenge and people are doing it, so please do not do that. You fear to report because of fear of repercussions. You might be stigmatized, you might lose your job. Sometimes you start feeling powerless. Inducement by the victim due to vulnerability. you're vulnerable to, you need this job, your whole family and clan is relying on you because you have this job. And now your boss is harassing you, you cannot report because you're vulnerable. You understand? Then there are also cultural barriers, like in some of your cultures, I know we are coming from different backgrounds, people cannot talk about sex. Like you hear me speaking about sex and you're like, which woman? She's like Nyanzi now. You know, how do you talk about sex? How do you go to police to report that someone actually slept with me or had sexual intercourse? So those kinds of cultural barriers that we have are actually prohibiting the fight against sexual harassment. So the challenges for trafficking in persons are covered. Most times, job seekers are poor because they have a lot of money. They will lie to you, they will even inject money in you, they will buy for you a ticket to go. Because they know at the end of the day you're going to pay this money. You understand? So the traffickers, even internally at your job place, they will inject money on you and take you to a hotel and you sleep there for a whole month. But they know there is step back, but because you're poor, unemployment, people are searching for jobs. So because you don't have a job, someone will subject you to trafficking in persons. I call it trafficking in persons because there are also other several types of trafficking in drugs, trafficking in wildlife. So when I'm talking about trafficking here, I'm talking about human trafficking. So vulnerability. We are all vulnerable, even me. Yeah? We are all vulnerable, men and boys. They will take you to guard somewhere. They'll take you as an accountant, and before you know it, your boss is telling you you have to guard the premises as well at night. And you have no choice. They'll take you to the agriculture sector. We are here looking at the white-collar jobs, but there are also those other informal jobs that you're going to be subjected to, and eventually you end up into trafficking situations. Corruption. I will not elaborate that. Everyone knows what happens with corruption. We lack data. There is insufficient data actually about the Ugandan context of trafficking. And as a researcher currently doing my PhD, I don't have any data, cogent data, about the trafficking numbers, situations, and everything. There is scanty data, especially academic data. What we have is newspaper material, yeah? So that is one other challenge. We have the long process of investigation and litigation. We go to court, go to police, come tomorrow, the other day, there is no judge, and what have you, yeah? So let's move forward. So what is the way forward? The way forward in fighting those two things the evils I've told you about as a group for jobs is raising awareness and engaging community populations. That is why I'm here today. That besides those other things they told you about the skills and everything, I have to raise awareness to you through the forums that I have. This is the forum I have to raise this awareness to you. So this information I'm giving to you, go disseminate it to other people who have not come here. If you hear someone telling you there is this job, want them first to be keen, yeah? Also raise awareness to other people. You understand? Yes. Report these cases using the complaint mechanisms I've told you about. Don't just be, my friend, you talked about, you were exposed to sexual exploitation or something. Report these cases because it will happen to you. This is a person you might be working with and you're going to work with them all your life and they will continue to meet you until you leave this place, yeah? So report these cases. Attend trainings. There are training changes of how these offenses are being committed, online cases, you know? So because of the changing trends of trafficking in persons, of sexual exploitation, and pornography, yeah? Ensure you attend trainings to be on the same footing with the perpetrators. You understand? Like as they are inventing new tricks, you also know how to combat these tricks. Then, we must adopt a victim's rights approach in addressing this issue. So let people not blame and just say, did she say that she was exploited? How was she dressed? She deserved it. Okay, someone was raped in office. What time was she in office? All those questions people ask are not a victim's rights approach, you know? So when someone tells you a story, don't start judging them and start saying, she was raped at one time at 6. Why did she stay late in office? I mean, you're trying like to defend the perpetrator because you're now blaming the victim. It should not be a blame game for the victim. Let's have a victim's rights approach. Find out what happened without blaming. You understand? Conclusively, I want you to all look at that conclusion. It is short. You may be a target. I've already told you how you will be targeted. Avoid situations that may lead you into being sexually abused or trafficked. Yeah, those are my take-home points. And report as soon as it occurs. Know your rights. As I conclude, let me ask a question. There are job adverts that are passed around in newspapers. Do you always apply for these jobs? Do you know that those, some of those jobs may be actually some of the examples I'm talking about? So I want you to be alert. Avoid job offers that are very juicy. They tell you of this job, you're here working, for example, in the Ministry of Gender, they tell you, I have a friend who works actually in Italy. She's earning 30 million a month. And there is this person who will connect you to that. Be very sensitive, okay? Because all these job offers, whether you're in employment currently or you're still searching for jobs. Otherwise, I want to thank you very much for listening. In case you have any contacts, don't forget to, in case you have any questions, don't forget to contact me. I'm actually running a YouTube channel to try and educate on several other topics. It is called the Sisters Empowerment Show. You can follow it on our YouTube channel. You will see a lot of videos that I'm trying to upload, trying to enlighten you, the youth, the people who are in the employment world searching for jobs, what you are bound to face. But I must also tell you that you should embrace technology as you look for jobs. Embrace technology, use it. The Sisters Empowerment Show. So I'll invite you to subscribe to it, to like, share, and follow. Write your comments. I personally, who is speaking, I have different shows. You will see me in different angles. I'm an entrepreneur. I do several things. But I want to tell my story to people, and that's why you will know where I'm coming from and why I'm here. Thank you very much. And thank you, Minister Ojeda, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, presenter, legal consultant, and thank you for also providing us with very useful information and making our internship session very enlightening and useful. So I think we've come to the end of our session. Before you are given graduation forms, may you please now refer to them and give your comments. And of course, at the end of it all, you will have to submit the forms there to Madam. Attempting them is compulsory. You may put your name, you may not. Then maybe the results are just to inform you about you're seeing we have a camera person up there. So you may see yourself in one of our videos in order to, of course, what you're trying to do is also to share out this information to many other people out there that really need to get this information. So, we request that this does not really come up. We don't want to see ourselves as CPS because of that. But it's basically to help other people that really need this information. So we have some administrative announcements. I hope everyone has registered. Did you all register? Registration? Your contacts, emails, and all that have been registered. So we are going to tag your registration for the submission of evaluation. So the evaluation is basically meant to help us understand whether the session is really useful, if there are areas that we need to improve, so that we can also work towards having it improved. Have a number of, if it wasn't for COVID, we would have had this room software, and even other people would be outside there. But now, due to the COVID situation, we have to
deal with smaller groups. So you continue marketing our service. This is the free service that the government of Uganda is providing to all those seekers. And do not hesitate to come and always ask any questions, consult. If you have an interview, we can spare some time, take you through, and prepare you. So wish you many mercies and wish you all the best. Most of all, as you apply for any job, do not get tired. Each opportunity that comes your way, embrace it. Use the network around you, the people around you. Believe most of all, one step leads to another. Before you know it, you also get there. So otherwise, thank you.
Then the other burning issue is about the salary expectations. I personally normally face this. Whenever you apply for a job, then you ask them, at the very last part of it, what's your salary expectation? How do we go about that? Then there's this experience thing. Some of us have had that sweet out. You have to make your volunteer experiences count. Or other side things that you have ever encountered, such that they can count here. But still you find out you have that's all the 3 years experience thing. Then they maybe mine might be peculiar, but they have this marriage part where you will be married. But then people come out with which kind of marriage? Because in Uganda, literally, we have so many kinds of marriage. Others are not even recognized due to the financial aspects. So I can say, personally, I have stayed with my wife for over 6 years. So you might try figuring it out, maybe negotiate with your employers how they can adjust, but also not really adjust. With the perception that you have so many people looking for jobs. You either quit or decide. Then my other point about the interview part, where they address your laws. Actually, I will call at this to Mr. Davis. And I'm also trying to address this issue. Wake up with a great chance. Like I just have a point blank, this and this. I'm not able, though when I'm moving, then the reality starts to break.
Thank you very much. You have something?
Yeah, okay. I would like to thank you actually. It was actually part of us, the psychosocial support. Because I remember even just coming here, the way we are handled. I think Mr. Dennis, Madame Crusoe, actually there is the way they add the impact to us. And actually we left this place when we are somehow killed. Yeah, and they restored our hope. And I would like to thank each and everyone. Yeah, your presentation was very good to us. And I would like the legal advisor, that actually she was so liberal. We've been studying at Makerere. You know, you can study gender-based gender. But some of the lecturers have been so right. Women are not so, we're not like, the name given to us. So some were practicing marriage offers information, but she has been read to us because everyone is affected. Not only, but there are some people only take men as if they are assassins, men they do this. But she was fair and square. So I'd like to thank you for that.
This problem of human trafficking, because in the past month or in recent years, this had been a common cause whereby these people who are taken abroad, they go and send videos of how they are suffering from there. Then also within the country, this very aspect is there. So let me know the measure. Then also there's this issue. I need also maybe an media, whereby since some of us we have finished our studies, but when you are trying to apply in these organizations and companies, for them they take people based on maybe race, religion, or like whom they know. So you can move and move and move, but you don't know the person who knows in there. So those are all the requirements.
To add on to that, there's also that factor of experience. It's unfortunate that most employers follow that so much. Because everywhere you go, everyone is demanded for a certain period of experience. So if everyone is asking for that, how will I end up with an experience? And yet, maybe I have a lot to offer, but they will judge me based on that, and I miss out on a lot of
Isn't it? Supposing you are the interview, and really we are saying that you should be honest, you should be truthful about yourself. And they ask you, do you have computer skills, and yet you know very well deep inside your heart that you don't have them, and you have put them on your CV. And you also know that once they hire you, part of the requirements for you to be able to apply your skills is computer. You still say, yes, I have the skills of computer or no? I think it goes back to our individual selves. Are we able to reflect the true picture of ourselves before a panel and then before yourself, even when nobody is there, it is being ethical. It is very important. Experience. Where do we get experience? In Uganda, there is no school for experience. But we just shared with you that experience is gained through volunteering, through apprenticeships, through internships. All of us, through our courses that we are undertaking, at least I know in my career, that internship is required, but it is not sufficient. You get it? At some point, we actually engage in volunteering activities in other organizations. You get it? What must be taken as something which is very important is that if you're volunteering, let this person give you a written particular, some kind of documentation to show that you are volunteering, or you are an apprentice, or you are an intern. Because at the end of the day, the employers are going to ask you, you have the experience. And in Uganda, we have no experience. You get it? Except for a few people who can be able to generate their own enterprises and set up businesses, they can get experience through that. But if you can't, then you must aggregate those small piecemeal experiences that you have to generate your experience. Race, religion, I think this is very unfair to date. Segregation and discrimination against sex, religion is criminal. And our land council will guide us on that. But if somebody was disaggregated or discriminated on the basis of sex, I think you should pursue that employer who did that. Appointment letters, I've talked about them. It is very important that you know your rights. And one of the issues that you should take to be most paramount is to have a written particular. That will save you a lot of questions, whether you are a legal employee, whether you are a contract employee, you get it. It will also save in compensation cases. You understand? So wherever you are, advise the employers to give you written particulars. Appointment letters, identification IDs, contracts, and issues in that line. Maybe I skipped others, but maybe you could, if I've skipped any, you could
Dressing bit, I was impressed, but one thing I must advise you about dressing is dress appropriately. Do not overdress and do not underdress. For us professionally as lawyers, we are always advised on which colors. I'm here in this suit, but when I'm going to court, I can't put on this for particular reasons. So I dress according to where I'm going. So don't dress like you're going for this very expensive function for these tycoons, yeah, to give that false impression. So I think that was a mistake on his side. But also we must sometimes be conscious about self-inflicting certain opinions in their minds because I overdressed and what have you. They talked about it. Have the other positive version. I can do dress, because if you have that, if that is your best suit, put it on and try to depict what your dressing is actually talking about. Yeah. Then about the marriage. There are only 4 types of marriages that are recognized in Uganda: the church marriage, the traditional marriage, the Sharia law, and the registration of marriage. For the one you call BC, yeah, there are only 4. So whether you stay and cohabit with your wife or your partner for 100 years, and everyone knows you as Mr. and Mrs., if you do not validate or try to put your marriage into any of those 4 sectors, then you're just wasting time. You're a concubine, you're a girlfriend. Even if you passed on, yeah, I speak the way I'm supposed to speak. I told him, yeah, I'm a lawyer. I do not like panel beat and try to, So even if you stayed with your wife or husband for 10 years or 20 and maybe they passed on and tomorrow you're claiming I'm the wife, they will regard you as a girlfriend. For me in court, I'll tell you, are you married? No or yes. So my advice to you is just simply go and make sure that you put your things in order. If you don't have money, go to the Register of Titles. You'll only pay about 150,000. And make sure that your marriage is legally recognized, since you find it as a problem. I'm sorry, sometimes I'm tough when I'm giving my answers, but I'll just tell you the law, what the law is. And when it comes to interpretation, that's what we take. We shall not listen that this one is the one I built my house with and what, no. For the race and gender and discrimination of all types, we have the Equal Opportunities Commission. If you're experienced with any kind of problem during your employment, maybe you've been discriminated or someone has been given a job and you think they were not the suitable candidate for this job, and you really have cogent evidence, you can go and raise your complaint to the Equal Opportunities Commission. That is why it was started up, among others, to ensure equal opportunities for everyone. Yeah? It sits in Google, I think it's in Google. You can Google it and find out their address. So you can always raise their complaint if you're discriminated in any way. Then the steps taken by government briefly. There are very many steps that are taken by government, but among others is the awareness, creating awareness. There are telephone contact numbers, toll-free numbers, but there is also a national trafficking in persons task force that is in place. When you go at the airport, you'll all see signposts that are warning you about trafficking in persons. So there are several steps, I cannot go through all of them, but government is taking up very seriously. We have a law that has been implemented, and that is the Trafficking in Persons Law of 2019. So this law, when you report a case in trafficking, they will not prosecute it as, we shall not prosecute it as, for example, sexual abuse as the case was before, or labor exploitation. We shall take it as a trafficking in persons case and charge you under that act. Yeah. So there are several steps and measures that government is taking in place that I cannot really go through. But it is a slow process and it's a clandestine offense. It's done under the table. So unearthing and adducing evidence for something that has been on, like for example, 3 months. It might take 3 months before you actually realize that you're being trafficked. So getting all this evidence is a challenge. I think that's
Daisy. In addition to what has also been raised, just to add my voice, especially of course the dress code, you got the point. You need to be simple smart, You don't have to because of course now when you look at even the kind of job you're asking for as a finance, then for you your mind thinks that you're going to manage these finances and you need to appear as if you're not going to hold all the accounts So you need to also be a little, lower down yourself a bit, be smart but really presentable, not be sure that you can manage, because also the organization needs someone they can sustain. When they look at your dress codes and maybe depending on the amount of money, salary expectations, will you be sustained on job? Because given how much you take home to sustain your expensive suits and shoes and perfumes, So they also fear for having someone they will have to lose in the shortest time possible, because also conducting interviews and the entire recruitment process takes money, takes time. So they need someone that they can sustain the job. That's why you need to appear, presentable and reasonable. Then when it comes to experience, you say, of course, there is no school of experience, you can say. But what I usually advise job seekers, as long as there is a job advert and you have the qualifications, just ignore the aspect of experience. Because during the selection process, especially for jobs that are for starters, officer level, experience usually goes maybe, if it's over 7 years, over 10 years. Of course, by the time, if you're to look at the qualifications and the requirements, you try to analyze and critically see that there are certain things you do not have, and definitely you will not qualify. Even when you take time to apply, you will not be shortlisted, simply because it is beyond your, unless if it's, for instance, like officer level. But of course, we also look at the age. For experience, 3 years experience, and maybe they need age of 21 to 25, and you fit, that is okay. You can tell them you have experience, you used to, maybe if you volunteered somewhere, if you attended an internship, you did some, so even if it's a 1 month activity that you engaged in, you add it on your CV, that's also experience, especially for starters, people that have just completed university. And also I would also inform you that as soon as you complete university, most organizations need people that are between 21 and maybe like 28, 29 years. So that is the time, if you fall in that age category, that you must look for jobs if you want to be in the formal sector. Because organizations look for people in that category. They need young people, Don't say I said me because of experience, I'm not. That is the time you should try out, volunteer, do what. Find yourself and you fix yourself with employment, as long as you're in that age group. But if you have not fixed yourself and you're over 32, 35, 40, beyond, you've not even started, I can assure it's going to be difficult, and it's the reality. So, like I said, there is time for everything. What you start with is what will lead you to your next career, how you're going to live your life. If you're fresh from uni, if you feel you want to be in the formal sector, work towards it. Then it usually tells the people that come in, ensure that every day you have a list of organizations you go to. Look out at the website. There is LinkedIn, whatever on the web. Use a number of forums. There is Brighter Monday, UN Jobs. Do all it takes, as long as you have the requirements. Apply. If you hear from someone could have access to maybe a job advert, and for you didn't have this stuff, literally there is this thing. You try out and see. Can you qualify? Just put in. It doesn't matter whether you're shortlisted or not. Before you know it, they may shortlist you for a job that you may apply for 6 months back or even a year. Just drop. Time will come and you will be shortlisted and you get, and then you prepare as well as you do other things. Don't sit at home and you say, I'm sleeping.